It is not a Friday, which in context makes sense. I'm sure you understand. But I had a list of stuff I wanted to talk about on Friday, and the list started getting unruly. And so I thought, maybe I should just do a video today. And today's Wednesday, give or take. I say that because it might not get posted today, but I think it will. So if it does, today's Wednesday. But this is not a typical Vault video because I'm shooting this specifically for the Vault. So it's a Vault exclusive. Going to tell you some stories over the weekend. Of course, it was Labor Day recently. And so I went up north, as I sometimes do on the holidays. And up north in Michigan means to me crossing the Mackinac Bridge. So went to the Upper Peninsula, had a lot of fun up there. But I actually get recognized in public by strangers. I think I mentioned that before. And so I always joke with my friends. I say, we're going to go up north and we're going to run into some people who are going to know who I am, but I don't know who they are other than, it's a viewer of my channel. And was actually walking along and saw a really neat-looking dog. And it was a dog that had two different colored eyes, blue and brown. And I had seen the dog before. I actually saw this exact same dog a year earlier in Mackinac City, not far from where I saw the dog this time. So I walked over to the owner and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "It's a beautiful dog." And he goes, "You're Steve Lehto." Now, generally speaking, when I say that's a beautiful dog, I get a response such as, "Thank you." But the man responded, he goes, "You're Steve Lehto. How you doing?" I go, "Good." I go, and he goes, "I'm a viewer of your channel. I love your work." I said, "Well, thank you very much, but I love your dog." And I said, "Is there a chance I saw this dog last year in Mackinac City?" He goes, "Yeah, we were in Mackinac City last year." And I said, "I was sitting on a bench. I turned around and the dog was behind me and the owner was over here." And I did not talk to the owner, and I realized now that was that guy. But we didn't come face to face. I just turned and saw the dog with the cool eyes. So I got recognized. But I have to tell you, though, that I was in a gas station on the same trip. And I saw a guy looking at me. A guy looks at me a couple times. And something to myself, okay, he's a viewer of my channel. He comes walking over and he goes, "Sir, I have to ask. I have to ask." And I'm about to say, "Yes, it's me." He goes, "Is that a Breitling watch?" I go, "Oh, yes, it is." So I get asked from time to time what watch I'm wearing on camera, and the watch is called a Breitling. And Breitling is a watchmaking company, and they've been around for a long, long time. And I've had this watch, and I've worn this watch pretty much every single day since I got it decades ago. It's a durable watch, and I wear it all the time. And so, yes, it's a Breitling. And the guy goes, "Beautiful watches. I love the Breitling watch." I said, "Oh, thank you very much." And he walked away. My friends come over and they say, "Oh, Steve, is he a viewer?" I said, "No, he's a fan of Breitling watches." So there was that. It brought me down a peg or two, as they say. I also got an email the other day from a gentleman who said, "Steve, I recently watched your video about how to write emails." And I can't remember where I did the video, whether it's here or the other channel. But I complained about how many people today don't understand how to write emails. And I pointed out that many people start an email instead of saying, "Hey, dear Steve," or "Dear Mr. Lehto," or "Dear Lehto's Law," just, "Hey, you're wrong," or "You're wrong," or "Hey, stupid." And I was complaining about the lack of civility and the lack of courtesy or etiquette in emails. And on some level, I was addressing two things. One is, I personally still think if you're going to address somebody respectfully, you should start with a "dear so-and-so." And, so the gentleman who wrote to me said, "Steve, I wanted to weigh in on this." And by the way, he did address me as "Dear Steve." He said, "But many people write to you with a inappropriate level of familiarity because they feel like they know you, because they watch your videos." And he goes, "That's a compliment." I get that. I understand that. That's fine. I have no problem with the fact that people feel familiar enough with me to send me an email and say, "Steve, dear Steve, I'm curious, I'm a viewer. What kind of watch are you wearing? Or what's the story with something back here? Or what's going on there?" That's fine. That's fine. But you still, I think, should use the level of etiquette that you're addressing a stranger, even if they feel like there's somebody you know. So I'll give you an example. Just make up something here. But let's suppose I were to bump into David Letterman. I'm walking along the street and I see David Letterman approaching me. Watched his show for years. Know all about his show. I watched him when he was late night. I watched him when he's earlier. I watched his show so much that he's one of the most familiar faces to me from television. Now, he's off TV now as far as that goes. But if I saw him, I wouldn't run over and hug him and go, hey, how you doing, man? I would have walked up to him and said, Mr. Letterman, I'm a big fan, and reached out to shake his hand and hope he would shake my hand. But I would not have said, hey, Davey, how's it going? And so, unfortunately, a lot of people feel insulated where they are because they're working through the laptop, the computer, the internet. And so they're more used to the idea that you just kind of banter back and forth. But I'm really not complaining in the sense that it doesn't upset me when I get an email that just says, hey, I got a quick question for you. It's more the ones that start with, hey, stupid, you're wrong. Okay, if you write to me, hey, stupid, you're wrong, you don't really expect a reply, do you? And I might not read past that sentence. So did you really think that was going to accomplish anything? Because it seems to me if you write an email that starts with, hey, stupid, you're wrong, you know that I'm not going to read it. I'm going to block you. Why did you write the email then? I guess that's my bigger question. And yes, I get those. I get those every single day. I also get emails that start with, you're wrong. You're wrong. And I'll read them far enough to discover if it's actually something I may have done that was wrong that I need to fix. And someone will say something like, well, you said orange is a bad color on cars. You're wrong. When I said orange is a bad color on cars, that was clearly a subjective statement. Many cars don't look good in orange, but there are some exceptions. But to say you're wrong because the GTO judge in orange looks good, okay. Doesn't make me wrong, though. I'm allowed to have opinions. I don't like egg salad sandwiches. I'm not wrong to, 1, not eat them, 2, avoid them like the plague, and 3, say I don't like them. That's fine. I'm not wrong, okay? I think I even did a video once called I'm Not Wrong, but another story. While up north, I'm going to mix and match here with things having to do with the channel, things not having to do anything with the channel. While up north, I visited a place called the Fiborn Quarry. Fiborn, F-I-B-O-R-N. I forgot what the F-I stands for, and someone can look it up and put it in the comments below and save me the trouble of doing some work. But the Born part is the last half of the man whose name was Chase Osborne, who was a very famous figure in Michigan politics for quite some time, who was apparently partners with somebody else on a rock quarry called the Fiborn Quarry, which is kind of out in the middle of nowhere. In fact, to get there, we accidentally drove down a logging road. And at one point in time, as I was heading into a curve that was this deep in sand, somebody in the back said, Steve, is this thing four-wheel drive? I said, yes, it is. They said, good. But we didn't get stuck. We didn't wind up on the news. Sometimes just avoiding being on the news is a win. Finally found the quarry. It's about, I don't know the mileage, but it's west of Trout Lake. So it's in the middle of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it's a rock quarry that was established in the early 1900s, ran for a few decades, and got closed down. And all that remains are a bunch of really old, spooky buildings. But it's a preserve that's been saved, and there's apparently some people who look after it. And you park outside, read the signage, you hike in, you see these really cool buildings, which by now I will have put on the screen. And it's just a really cool thing. It's just cool that it still survives, and it's also kind of cool in the way it's decayed. Most historic villages and things, and this, by the way, was a village. Most historic villages, if they fall apart, you go, that's a crying shame. They should have preserved this. But because this quarry is stone and the way it's eroding, it makes it look kind of really cool and kind of spooky. By the way, some people may have noticed that once in a while, not every video, but once in a while, I, underneath the language on send all correspondence to my P.O. box, I have new language that addresses that video in what I call a reverse trigger warning. A reverse trigger warning. And oftentimes I'll shoot a video and I'll say something and I realize that, oh, that thing I just said is going to cause some people to freak out. But it's not wrong. So what I do is I will leave it in the video and I'll address it with a reverse trigger warning. So the other day I was talking about how you go to law school. After going to get your undergrad, get your bachelor's, you get your law degree, you pass the bar, character and fitness, get fingerprinted, all that stuff, get sworn in, now you're a lawyer. So it took you about 8 years. And somebody, in response to that video, like I can count on this the same way that the sun rises in the west. Okay, it rises in the east. Steve, the sun doesn't actually rise. See, the earth is spinning. The sun is actually not rising so much as the Earth is spinning, creating the apparent illusion of it rising. I'm surprised you don't know that. Well, so I put the reverse trigger warning at the end of the video, and I said, by the way, I understand that it's possible in extremely rare circumstances to become a lawyer without doing all the things I described exactly as I described. California has a method where you can do it. It's extremely uncommon. The vast majority of attorneys out there who practice law did what I described. Undergrad, law school, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So I put the reverse trigger warning in there. So if you make it to the end and you're hearing the Canadian robot lady's voice, glance at the screen to see if there's any extra verbiage on the first of the two end screens. Second screen is the one that says, watch for low-flying owls. First screen is the one that says correspondence here, and there might be a reverse trigger warning. And I call it a reverse trigger warning because I'm putting it in long after what I've said, because I don't care enough to go in and edit what's going to upset fewer than 1% of the audience. Less than 1% of the audience. Someone's going to complain about that, even though I corrected it. And by the way, if I'm talking here and I correct myself, I'm not wrong either. I corrected myself. I just don't feel like going and fixing the first part of the statement. One of the craziest things that I find annoying, and I realize I shouldn't find this annoying, but I do, I get bombarded with spam email. And the funny thing is I've got a couple email addresses, and they're both just bombarded with spam. And one of the craziest and dumbest, and I know why they're doing it. I know it's a phishing expedition. They're hoping I respond and give them the password to my email so they can hack my email. But I get this email about once a day that says your password is about to change, your email has been canceled, or the one I get a lot too is your password has expired. It's not going to expire. It has expired. Click here to fix that. I get that message in an email, in an email box, in an email account, that to read, I must have the password. So when they say your password has expired, the fact that I can read that shows me that it hasn't. And I find that somehow insulting. I guess I'm thinking to myself, if they really think I'm going to fall for that, they're basically insinuating that I'm stupid. I mean, and I understand. No, they send 1 million of those out, and they get one response a day where somebody goes, "Oh, my password's expired. I better fix that." But I don't know why. I find it insulting. I've mentioned before that I'm getting another car. I have another car coming. I ordered a car. It's not a Corvette. It's not a Batmobile. Nobody has guessed it yet. I've told a couple people, so if you know, please don't post it in the comments. But I ordered the car, and I ordered it over a year ago. And the reason I ordered it over a year ago is I was talking to somebody who sold these cars. They must be special ordered. Again, it's not a Batmobile. And the person told me, well, just to let you know, Steve, these cars have over a year-long wait list. So if you placed your order today, you still won't get it for a year at least. So I placed the order a year ago, June. And in June of this year, I called and said, hey, how's that car coming along? And I was told, oh, it's still being built. And I've seen photographs of the build in progress. The car exists. It's not complete yet. But I got word yesterday, that we think the car will be done at the end of this month. So when it is done at the end of this month, and I take delivery of same, assuming there's not snow on the ground, because that's always a possibility in Michigan, pretty much any month between, like, say, I don't know, September and May. I'm joking. It probably won't be snowy. But if I can drive the car, I will, and I will shoot a video, and I will introduce the car to people, to the video audience, and I will the YouTube audience, and I will introduce the car to you, and we'll probably go for some drives in it, and we'll have some fun with it, because that's what cars are for. So there you go. And finally, I got to tell you, I get asked quite often by people who talk about the entire body of work that I put out there on the internet. They go, Steve, how many videos have you shot? And if you poke around on my website, on the channel somewhere, it's going to say that there's 2,000 videos or something. But I've mentioned before, I take down a lot of videos that wind up over on the Vault channel. And I've also just taken down videos I didn't care for anymore, and I just eliminated them. And so if you go back and were to look at the videos still on the channel and look at the numbers, you'll see that back when they were numbered in the title, they're not all in sequence in the sense that there's missing numbers. So it'll say episode 35, the very next one is episode 44. And that's back when I did one a week. And then in the seasons where I go, 2 point something, 3 point something, there's big gaps of videos that I've removed. Many of them will work their way back on the Vault channel, but many of them will not. And so I had somebody just the other day goes, "Hey, Steve, I'm looking for this one video. I know you did it. Can't find it. What happened to it?" And I said, "Oh, I took it down." They said, "Are you going to put it back up in the Vault channel?" I said, "Probably not." And it was simply a topic that I was trying to explain something. And the overwhelming reaction I got was people who either didn't understand what I was saying or were pretending not to understand it. But it caused this gigantic brouhaha in the comment section that I didn't think was worth it. So I just removed the video. But there is something. I've mentioned before that the audio version of all of my main channel videos are posted on all of the various podcast sites as audio. So if you have iTunes or Spotify or Podbean or Google Play or any of Stitcher or any of those podcasting sites, well, I think Stitcher's one that's going away. You can see all of my podcasts there in audio form, and a lot of the ones that are removed from my main channel, I never removed from that. But I can tell you that the other day I did go in and remove a couple hundred of the oldest podcasts. So, but again, just because we're discussing numbers here, I went and looked today, and while there's 2,200 videos on my main channel or something like that, I have over 3,500 podcasts that are still up on iTunes, etc. So in theory, if there was a video I did a long, long time ago that you cannot find on my main channel or in the video existence, there's very likely a chance that the audio of it is still up. But who knows? I find those numbers so daunting. I really ought to go in and clean up that channel, the audio only, and remove some of those really, 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 really old podcasts. But I'm a busy man, and I haven't got that kind of time. So, by the way, and many people out there get most of the jokes I make, and I'll make references to old TV shows or anything like that. But there is one that occasionally I say that I'm not sure if enough people get, so I hate to explain references, but I will here. But there's an episode of The Simpsons where I believe it's supposedly Hitler's car that was brought to the local fair. And there's a promoter who's talking about why this car is so fascinating. And he said something to the effect of, "They tell me he still could be in the trunk, but I'm a busy man, and I haven't had time to look." So my brothers and I, who are Simpsons fans, whenever we're talking about something that we could very, very easily do, but we don't because we're lazy, we go, "Well, I'm a busy man." So when I say I've got 3,500 audio podcasts, but I delete some of them, but I'm a busy man, that's a reference to a Simpsons episode. So there you go. That's what you get for a Wednesday. We'll see what happens on Friday. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.